PR, public relations. It's a necessity in today's world, and it's probably now more important than ever. And yet, we see incidents on a daily basis that remind us why it's so important, because someone or some group is out there on this very day making some comment that somebody doesn't like, or was probably something they shouldn't have said to begin with. I should know. It's important in the YouTube space, and it's the least fun part of the job, to be honest with you. All aspects of PR, promoting yourself, trying to get yourself out there, writing to developers to cover their game, trying to let your work speak for yourself rather than anything else. I'm honestly not a fan of it, as you can tell. It's not a part of it that appeals to me, and it's probably why in terms of my own channel, I haven't exactly grown that much. But I am learning day by day, but it's just a minefield out there. You have to be careful with every word you say, because out there, someone, somewhere may take it the wrong way. I'm lucky enough I haven't had to deal with a negative PR experience as a whole, but for the creator of Titan Souls, that's exactly what they're facing right now. This leads me into talking about one of the latest incidents in the gaming world. For those who aren't aware, popular YouTube critic Total Biscuit recently tweeted on the game Titan Souls as he was playing it for the first time. As you can see here, the opinion was very straightforward, but not negative in terms of the game itself. Games are reasonably varied nowadays, and not every game is going to please every consumer. And to be an unbiased critic, you have to look at things objectively and put yourself in the shoes of others to determine where the game's strengths and weaknesses lie. But unfortunately, Total Biscuit will not be doing a WTF video on Titan Souls. Not after what went down with one of the developers on the team. And I agree with his decision to excuse himself at this point. It's one of the reasons he's one of the most, if not the most respected YouTube critic out there. He takes his ethics very seriously from all angles, and it sets a guideline of what the consumer should expect from their critics. I admit, I look up to the guy. He stands up for what he believes in. Anyway, one of the members of the team from Titan Souls posted a series of quotes on Twitter that ranged from what could have been playful taunting to, well, insulting. You can see the quotes in the video as it comes up, but let's just say they're not flattering necessarily. And the backlash on both sides of the argument has been huge. Several developers have supported the developer for talking, while several have spoken out against him. And a variety of gamers have spoken up saying that they will be passing on Titan Souls due to the developer's actions. Needless to say, emotions have been drawn to the surface, that's for sure. And with the internet in the condition that it's currently in, you can be sure that some of what has been said has been vile and as nasty as you can expect. And it circles around to that nasty phrase, PR. One series of comments, one series of dialogue, and an expression of full emotion that's protected, at least in America, to say what we want, might have had a large effect on Titan Souls sales. And that's what got my attention. You see, Titan Souls is a game that I picked up, a game that I did a video for my channel with, and a game that I am immensely enjoyed. Is it perfect? No, not at all. Far from it. Not many games are. But I really enjoyed the game's design, the art direction, and the sound design. It is a game that I can recommend as a new experience, even for the current price. And now, it's got a stigma about it, all of a sudden, looming over what is, in my opinion, a great game. And it just shows how games have become more than just a physical product nowadays. They become a battleground for expression, a battleground for opinions, and a battleground for some of the most complicated issues known to mankind today. Is that necessarily a good thing? And while on some levels it's encouraging that games have become so influential, it's also a little bit frightening as well. That even if a game has a great quality to it, it's made with great design intentions and wonderful execution, that it may not succeed in today's gaming atmosphere. I mean, look at games like Schrodinger's Cat and the Raiders of the Lost Quark, Rollers of the Realm, Talamir, games that I've enjoyed immensely. And yet, they probably didn't earn the sales that they deserve from my perspective. Maybe they didn't get the publicity they deserve from the bigger name journalists. Maybe they didn't get enough mainstream appeal. Maybe I'm the only one who enjoyed them. But these were games that I wish sold better and did better, and it brought me to the question of why. In those cases, it wasn't a media incident, but plenty of games have benefited and suffered at the hands of the new and old forms of media. And it's scary on what effect that can have on a person's livelihood. But what exactly has changed over the last several years to get us to this point? What has changed so drastically that we've got to the point where a person's beliefs have such an impact on what we go and buy? Well, that answer is several-fold, and it's not an easy topic to cover. I'm going to go over what I think are the biggest factors behind it and why this trend has gotten me worried about the future of the industry. Gaming has grown up in some ways, but that's not necessarily a good thing in all cases. There is still a childlike mystique to gaming, a nature of imagination and escape, and while it's great that more recent titles have hit more serious topics, part of me wonders if that childlike nature is fading ever so slightly into the night. Let's start with the most obvious one, the state of online communication. We live in a world where communication is at our fingertips more than ever before, and we stay more connected to people than we ever have in the past. We can see the faces of who creates things on social media like Facebook and Instagram, and we can learn what they have to say on Tumblr or Twitter. We can make human connections with people, get to know who they are and what they believe, and that's something that can't be overlooked. There are people that we want to succeed, want them to do well on some level, but if their belief system doesn't line up with ours, that's where things get dicey. Gamergate has shown that all too well over the last several months. Whether you agree with people who use the hashtag or not, we can safely say that there have been some strong emotions revolving around its atmosphere, that's for sure. It's funny. For all the connections that we've made nowadays and the people that we've come to know, we have a plethora of information at our hands at all times. And yet, more than ever, we don't always use that information in the greatest of ways. We jump at phrases, we jump at the opportunity to criticize, and we don't necessarily use the greatest of judgment at times while doing it. It's too easy to hit that enter button and not think about what you've just said. There's less restrictions. You don't have to say something to a person's face. You can hide behind a wall while doing it. You can protect yourself with like-minded individuals. But that's the key word in this, individual. Because lost in all this is the idea of the individual, and yet they are pushed to the forefront. Despite the fact that they've become a figurehead for several controversies and events within the industry. Zoe Quinn, John Bain, Ben Kuchera, Milo, no, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, and now Andrew Gleason, the lead artist for Titan Souls. They are presented more than ever in today's world, and yet in the same breath, they are lost in the void as well. Lost to a thought, an image, a concept. They aren't necessarily people anymore. They are ideas or thoughts for change, figureheads to what is wanted change in today's world. Take Acid Nerve, the developer of Titan Souls, and a fine example of what I'm talking about. Lost in the controversy revolving around the statements made by Mr. Andrew Gleason, he has become the face of their company at this point. That's the thing. Even though he's only part of the three-man team, all the attention is put onto him. And for those other creators, Mark Foster and David Fenn, they're now lost to the void. They don't exist. Despite Mr. Fenn making wonderful arrangements of music for the game, and Mr. Foster, most likely, programming the detailed boss battles of the game, they lose their identities in all this, as Acid Nerve becomes about Mr. Gleason, the one who spoke up. But he himself is lost to the couple of phrases he said, and now he becomes the dev who made Titan Souls. Depersonalized, ripped from his identity, molded into more of an idea of what he said more than anything else. Now, one may argue that ideas make who we are, that our thoughts make us who we say. But that's the thing. One thought doesn't make that. Two thoughts don't make that. It's a collection of all thoughts, and it's not necessarily a good thing that one phrase can become so important in the long run. You see, he is the one now who made some beautiful pixel artwork and contributed to the project, but he has become the voice. He is Acid Nerve, for better or for worse. Because as opposed to keeping things about just the game, or the medium that it's played on, we as humans nowadays want a face, a voice behind our ever-growing medium. And he spoke the loudest. And now, most likely, Titan Souls will suffer because of it. Oh, don't get me wrong, it's getting great reviews. But keep in mind this, a recent study showed that only 3% of decision-making for game decision in terms of purchasing take reviews into account, at least for traditional sites like Polygon and Kotaku. But word of mouth has meant so much more, and to that extent, who these people are. And our personal feelings will always shape our transfer of information as we become attached to the issues that we become involved in. And rest assured, that's affected what we think of these people and what we think of the game even before we've played it. Now, don't get me wrong, the press is as guilty of that too at times. We've seen ideals come into reviews when they honestly shouldn't, like Polygon's Bayonetta 2 review, where ideals of a person make a decision into their liking of a game. And on a personal level, it should for the individual buyer, but not presenting that to the audience as their opinion in terms of a buyer's guide. Developers that we think are doing right, those that we want to make human connections to or have respect to, at a subconscious levels, sometimes we really want them to succeed and want their game to be good. Now, as a reviewer and a media member, you've got to disconnect that with your critical review, at least in my opinion. Take all that out the window and let the game and the game alone speak for itself. It doesn't matter who the developer is, even if he's a horrible excuse for a person or the next Mahatma Gandhi. The work itself should speak for them. And that's the thing why a PR specialist is so important. They know about message. These people know that one phrase, one saying can rile up people and make or break a game at times. And when you don't take advantage of those skill sets, you may end up being on the wrong side of the mob mentality that exists. You see, the barrier of entry nowadays also plays a huge part in the rising trend regarding individuals becoming a forefront of their companies. Let's face it, it's easier more than ever to make a game. With tools like crowdfunding and Kickstarter and support via tools like Patreon, more games are able to be made from just an idea. And those pursuing those ideas are able to do it in a large variety of ways now. But in that came a cost, the barrier of entry. You see, again, it's easier to make a game nowadays, and the industry has more self-published games than ever. But would those games have made it past a publisher normally in days of old? Would a company allow statements to be made that could hurt the progress of a game? Ah, yes, that nasty old PR. That is taken for granted, because it could be something that saves a game, but at times, it could be hell. Hell, Total Biscuit himself knows the strength of a PR guy. He hired one, which makes absolutely sense given the connection he has with his audience and the person who he has become. But lots of small indie developers disregard this notion at times or don't take it into account, that they think the game can do the talking and the talking alone. Let the product do it. And it's so far from the truth at this point, it's comical. It isn't ideal, I give it that, but it makes a difference now more than ever. You're selling more than a game. You're selling an experience which now includes the developer and the faces of that company. You see, that's what it all comes back to, isn't it? The individual. I look at the gaming industry and the gaming press right now, and the current state of gaming. I enjoyed games that have pushed the envelope of experiences and emotional connections, like Valiant Hearts and This War of Mine. I've enjoyed games that are more down to the core, just a fun experience, like Super Smash Bros. And Team Fortress 2. I may or may not have known who created these games, or what beliefs these people had. But these games helped me grow. Helped me enjoy what life has to offer, taught me lessons about the realities of not only to life, but helped me learn a little bit more about myself as well. Learning about the control issues that I have when playing Medic in a TF2 game, being at the mercy of my teammates and being sort of helpless. The emotion I felt for a person who actually isn't real in a game like This War of Mine, and what they went through. And it scares me that I would never have gotten those experiences if something went wrong, if something popped up in terms of a person or a statement, and that the information I had gotten was warped thanks to political beliefs or personal grudges, that those experiences may be torn away from me if I don't stand up to protect it. I feel at times that my hobby is going through a change that I don't like, that will take what helped me so much as a kid growing up and made me who I am today, that because of certain politics or beliefs, that I may have never enjoyed those experiences. That terrifies me. Games like Titan Souls, games where I may disagree with the developer or what they said and who they are in real life, but ultimately brought me a level of joy and comfort in the end. Maybe that's why I'm doing work for TechRaptor. Maybe that's why I started my own YouTube channel, setting aside a successful career as a software engineer to do a job that's not paying the bills at this point. Maybe I'm holding onto a segment of my life that I don't want to let go for everything that it's done for me. That the idea of a person or an ideal telling me what to play or what's good to play on both sides of the argument isn't the kind of thing I want for the industry. To buy Titan Souls because of what happened as well. I don't agree with you, but I respect your right to do it. It's a scary world, and it's a world that I'm really uncomfortable with. But that's what it comes down to, isn't it? The individual's experience, making a judgment for yourself, making a judgment using the information you have, sorting it based on your beliefs, and using it to make your decision. I do hope that people give the game a chance despite what has happened, because it's a fun game nonetheless. I just hope that in the end, those elements that I believe in, the game itself and what the game has to say, still stays a relevant part of the industry for years to come. Because I would be a lost soul otherwise.